Hello.
Glad to see you or not see you. I'm probably there. Okay, Jenna. Hello, Jenna. Thank you for joining us. And who else? Let's see. We're 1 minute away. We need to see a few more people. We don't yet. 1, 2, 3. We don't quite have a forum yet. I know that Marcella will not be joining us. She has a conflict, and but she is the only one that contacted me that they would not be able to be here. Has anybody contacted you, Lisa?
No, I haven't heard from anyone.
Okay.
So I'm gonna assume since I didn't hear anything that we still have other people. Oh, here we go. Here come Bethany, and actually Marcella's here too.
Marcella, I'll tell you what, then maybe we need to move to Marcella's place as soon as we can in the agenda. So if she has to leave, we can not miss her contribution. Hi, Bethany. Hi, Marcella.
Well, we do have a
Hi,
forum
everyone.
now,
Jean,
so
I
we can
think
get
I'm good
started.
for today. I think it was the next month's meeting that I have a conflict.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. All
Yeah,
right.
thanks for checking.
Okay. It is 1:30 and this is Wednesday, April 19th, and I am going to call this meeting of the Commission on Diversity Awareness to order. And first order of business is to take the roll call. So, Jean, I am here. Carolyn Kidd. Maybe she'll join.
Carolyn.
Sorry?
I don't see Carolyn just yet.
Okay, she might join us a little bit late. Sarah Jarvis?
Here.
Mandy Gebler?
Here.
Marcela Pino?
Here.
Bethany Camp?
Here.
And Angela Sanchez?
Here.
Okay. Who would like to read the mission statement of the land acknowledgement? Anybody?
I can do that. It's Sarah Jarvis.
Okay.
The Commission on Diversity Awareness humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home.
Thank you, Sarah. And I skipped over the mission statement. This commission of diversity awareness is to foster support, respect, awareness, and appreciation of diversity among all citizens of Flagstaff. Okay, are there any upcoming opportunities or upcoming announcements that people would like to make on diversity related activities or occurrences here in town? Anybody?
I don't see anyone's hands up.
Okay, well, I would like to remind the people that we do have a collaboration. CODA has a collaboration with the library, and CODA will be participating in a History of Pride in Flagstaff panel, and that's this coming Monday night at 6:30. That's April 24, and it's at 6:30 p.m. In the 4th Street Library. And Bethany and our community member guest Ray Garcia and myself will be on the panel along with Deb Taylor. She will be presenting on the history of the Flagstaff Pride in the Pines. And I will be talking about the history of CODA, and then Bethany and Ray will be talking about, as yet to be determined, the shape and format of this history collection process of or project of LGBTQ plus persons in Flagstaff, which I'm really excited about. And we're going to be having a meeting about that on Friday or Thursday, tomorrow. Okay, moving on. Anybody here for public comment? We invite you to provide a public comment. And just a reminder, nobody on the commission can respond to public comments, but we can request things to be put on future agendas. So go ahead. Are there any public comments? Okay, seeing no public comments, we can now move on to the minutes. And does anybody have any corrections or changes to the minutes that were provided?
Yes, Angela had put in the chat that her name was misspelled, so we'll make sure that we'll get that corrected.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have any comments about the minutes? Okay, would anybody like to make a motion to accept the minutes as written?
Hi, Jean. I'll make a motion. This is Commissioner
Okay,
Pino.
second?
I'll second. This is Commissioner Camp.
Okay, thank you very much. All those in favor of accepting the March 22nd meeting draft minutes?
Aye.
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 Anybody? Opposed? Oh, Carolyn joined us. Hello.
Hi, I was here for a little. I was listening to you, but I didn't want it to interrupt. Hi, everyone.
I'm so glad you're here.
Hi, Carolyn. We got you
Hi.
counted. I saw when you came in, so we got you counted.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, the ayes have it. So we've accepted we've approved the minutes for March 22nd. The date of the next meeting is going to be May 17th. Can everybody make the May 17th? Is that a meeting date that is acceptable?
That looks like it'll work for me.
Okay,
Works for me too.
Me too.
excellent. Okay, well, that will be the next meeting then, May 17th. Now we're going to move on. As I explained to everybody, we've got such a full agenda. I'm going to kind of keep this moving along. Action items. Is there a report on the Municipal Equity Index report? Any discussion update on the presentation that Chris Rhodes made to us? I know that I checked into the library because I thought there had been some items that were overlooked, particularly around elder LGBTQ, but I found out that the group that I was thinking about actually wasn't happening. So does anybody have any comments on the Municipal Equity Index report that Chris Rhodes provided us with?
Hi, Commissioner Toner. This is Marcella. I just have a question. Did we receive a copy of the report that was sent out? I know we got the one from last year.
That I think, Lisa, did you send that out? I'm not sure.
I did. I sent it out some weeks back, but if you need a copy of it, I can send it out to you again.
No worries, Lisa. Let me dig through and make sure that I have it. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, anybody, any other comments? Let me see what's in the chat here.
That was just Sarah and Angelica. I'll get that correct today. Letting us know that they can attend May 17th.
Okay, excellent. All right, so we're going to move on to our next item, which is I'm very pleased to have a report from Jenna, or a presentation from Jenna Ortega, who is a sustainability analyst for the city of Flagstaff, and she's going to be talking to us about EPA grant opportunities for resilience hubs. So thank you very much for joining us, and you may have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Let me see if this works.
Excellent.
Okay. Perfect. So, good afternoon, commissioners. Jenna Ortega, for those of you who I have not met, thanks for sharing this space and your time. I'm really grateful for this opportunity. So I'm a member of the City Sustainability Office and I work on our climate team. I'm here today to share some information on a very recent federal funding proposal that our team, alongside community partners, developed to create a model for a resilience hub network in Flagstaff. So to start, we'll talk a little bit about resilience, what it means and why it's so important, both in Flagstaff and from a community and equity perspective, what the purpose of resilience hubs and some common characteristics. And then I'll share some details of the funding proposal and wrap it up with the future of this concept in Flagstaff. Feel free to stop me at any point if you have questions or want to clarify. I know you have a packed agenda, so I'll try to run through some of it quick, but I want to make sure that I'm also being clear and transparent. So jump in, please. So to get us started, in order to talk about resilience, we do have to talk about climate change and what we expect to be different in Flagstaff. So by 2050, we're expected to have warmer temperatures, which will lead to drier conditions. Changes in our snowpack, which will have implications for water quality and water availability. Increased risk of wildfires due to those drought conditions and damage to forests from pests. And last, really more intense storms, including rainstorms, which will have increases for the potential for post-fire flooding like we've been seeing during our monsoons. One thing that really hits me hard is that in 100 years, Flagstaff's future climate is projected to be really close to Prescott's, and that includes the plants, the trees, and the growing season length, and that feels very different to me. So the carbon neutrality plan, which you might hear me call the CMP, has 3 core goals, and those are achieve carbon neutrality by 2030, prepare our community, our systems, and our resources to be more resilient to the impacts from climate change, and to address climate change in a manner that prioritizes those most impacted and ensures that the cost and benefits of all of our climate work are distributed equitably throughout the community. And so here are the 3 ways that we take climate action. And so the first is to reduce our impact. And that often is to decrease the amount that we are contributing to climate change, often by reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. The next is to build a resilient community by being prepared for all the changes. And last, to prioritize people who are experiencing disproportionate impacts from climate change. So the goal that often defines the carbon neutrality, kind of by default of the name, is that we have set a goal to be carbon neutral by 2030. But the other 2 goals are just as, if not more, important. And they really define how we are going to reach that first goal of being carbon neutral. And so they ensure that we're creating a stronger Flagstaff that's going to be well prepared to adapt to all the changing conditions and to ensure that equity is integrated into every action we take. And so here's like your textbook definition of resilience that is hard to read. I will try to read it out loud for you right now without messing up, but it is, in the context of climate, the ability to anticipate, accommodate, and positively adapt to or thrive amidst changing climate conditions, while enhancing quality of life, reliable systems, economic vitality, and conservation of resources. So I've heard it described as just the most general thing of bouncing forward rather than bouncing back to kind of the status quo. And so to dive into that really hard to understand for me definition, It's really that we know climate change poses a risk from everything to our health and way of life to our infrastructure and economy. So it's about understanding the challenges and changes we are facing. And it's about how we anticipate and prepare for change that matters. We have to be able to support people in our community, and this will include addressing root problems and inequities. And last, it's really important to think about resilience as being hyper-local and therefore something that really has to be community-led. But in order to do that, we have to really create those better functioning systems so that we can be stronger and more resilient. And we have to ensure that everyone in our community can thrive during all of these climate change and different conditions and have an improved quality of life. So resilient communities, of course, come in a wide variety, but they do have several characteristics in common. And the most important one is really just the capacity to respond to change. So by recognizing that change is always going to happen, whether it's economic, social, political, environmental, cultural, any combination, resilient communities are ones that take action during periods of stability. So they're very proactive. One thing to note is that resilience does include being prepared for disaster, so having supplies ready and emergency plans, but it's so much more than that. It's really a way to link this disaster preparedness, if you will, with all the other activities that help a community flourish. So I think the kind of overall idea is that a healthy and resilient community is able to respond and recover far more quickly from any type of disaster, big or small. And in the process, they'll develop a bunch of positive systems that will enhance the well-being of people and the community.
Thank you.
And to talk very briefly about equity, it's such a big part of climate change. It's a big component of resilience and needs to be better embedded into all the work we do. We know that climate change isn't going to impact everyone the same. Those who contribute to the least are often those affected first and impacted the most. The ability to cope with disasters and hazards may also vary widely, and both existing advantages and disadvantages will be further exacerbated by climate change. And this is due to a history of broken systems that still exist today, racial inequity, displacement, disenfranchisement, underinvestment, and so on, leaves people of color, indigenous populations, people with lower incomes, people living unsheltered, and many others to face disproportionate impacts and experience environmental harm and health impacts, and increased exposure to pollution, to climate hazard. So a result of all these compounding inequities might also lead to a reduced capacity to be able to cope mentally and physically after a climate disaster. And even areas in Flagstaff won't face the same threat. So a single community will have different impacts, just a neighborhood apart, or even just individual homes or people may experience things differently when it comes to wildfire threats or flooding. So what are resilience hubs? I didn't know what they were not too long ago, so it's, I would say, kind of a newer name, if you will. The concept I don't think is new, but really at their core, I like to consider them an enhanced community center. So they will use a physical space, often a building and the surrounding infrastructure, and they should be in a well-established and trusted location within the community. And often they are equipped with the ability to provide clean air, heating, and cooling. And so resilience hubs during a time of emergency can become a crisis coordinating center and provide access to shelter, power, water, medical supplies, food, charging station, and many other necessities. But really importantly, we know that the most successful disaster response is to invest in the preparedness of people, neighborhoods, communities before a disruption happens. So resilience hubs are really special in that they are meant to operate every day of the year in what you would call a normal mode. And during this time, they do a lot of the same stuff. They can offer community members access to resources, materials, day-to-day services, including stuff like training programs, healthcare events, space to grow food, and more. One important aspect of resilience hubs is to ensure that power is in the community to be able to identify and drive the solutions. They should be supported or can be supported by local government and other partners, but they should be co-developed, led, and managed by community members and community-based organizations. The services should be informed by the local people in that neighborhood to ensure they're centered on the vision of those who live and work there, especially those who have been historically underrepresented. So really the purpose is the space and resources for communities to become more self-determining and socially connected. And I think one of the best things about them is that those 3 types of climate action we talked about, resilience hubs can do all 3 at once. So they can reduce emissions by having green infrastructure and zero emission technologies. They help you prepare, but they're also focused on equity. And I don't know a lot of climate solutions that can do all 3 of those as well as resilience hubs can. So this slide just is kind of a screenshot of a bunch of the benefits. They include things like health and safety, improved air quality, economic stability through job trainings, and really just building community cohesion. And so finally, to get into the proposal, just last week, the Sustainability Office submitted a funding proposal through the Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, and the program was their Environmental Justice Government to Government program. I won't spend too much time here, but these are some of the goals of that federal funding program they offer. And so the proposal we submitted, named the Flagstaff Regional Resilience Project, if funded, will upgrade, supply, and equip 3 resilience hubs in Flagstaff. 2 will be in physical spaces, and 1 will be a mobile resilience hub serving people living unsheltered. The purpose of these hubs will be to serve people, especially those disproportionately impacted, and to provide resources that meet community identified needs. They'll provide all those great things that we talked about, including the day-to-day services, including healthcare events, emergency support, training, growing food, and the buildings will demonstrate zero emissions technology. This proposal was supported by a network of 13 partners who we'll get into, and their offer and role in this is to provide services both directly at the hubs as well as to create kind of a network throughout our region eventually. Another thing is to expand, that the proposal included was to expand air quality data and offer HEPA filters to improve health outcomes for those affected by wildfires, dust, smoke, etc. So the hub locations, the 2 physical spaces, one will be at the Murdoch Center in Central Flagstaff, led by the Southside Community Association. The second physical space will be at the Market of Dreams in Central East Flagstaff, led by Sunnyside Neighborhood Association, and 1 mobile hub serving people living unsheltered and providing ADA accessible showers, laundry, food, supplies, and transportation. And this will be led by the community assistance teams of Flagstaff. And it is a 3-year project. So as the hubs grow, the project will extend services to rural and tribal communities within a 50-mile radius. And this will be a partnership working with a League of Neighborhoods and others. And so here are the 13 official partners. There was quite a few more who were interested, but we had to have an official letter to submit with the grant. So these are the official listed ones. And you can see on the left, 3 of them are getting funding directly to them. And this will, for both the Southside Community Association and Sunnyside Neighborhood Association, will provide a position for these community-based organizations. It will provide funding for social services and support, weekly workshops and monthly healthcare events, and all the building upgrades needed to increase energy efficiency. And for the Murdoch Center, expand the solar system there and backup power system, as well as some electrification and a HEPA filtration system. And Sunnyside, it will do at the Market of Dreams more to supplies needed to support backup power and provide warming and clean air in times of need. Funding to CATS, the Community Assistance Teams of Flagstaff, will be to support their mobile outreach and hygiene bus as a mobile resilience hub, hire a part-time project manager, and provide additional services to all the great services they already provide, and other things. So that is our list of partners, and the outcomes of this proposal are, again, things that we've kind of gotten into, but overall, it's really about working towards investing in solutions that center human needs and people and community. And so you can kind of see this through all the things that talk about preparedness and ability to respond and building community capacity. And project activities, I pulled a lot of these directly. We've talked about a few of them, such as the workshops and training and healthcare. A few I haven't talked about is that we'll establish an advisory group to guide, evaluate, and adapt this model and all the programs, and recommend mechanisms to make it better, and to really make sure we're meeting the needs of people. It will involve a community engagement process to really identify those local needs and priorities for each individual hub. There's some fun stuff about climate resilient gardens in there, and events and workshops and demonstrations, not just at the hubs, but at community and schools, as community gardens and schools as well. Funding to distribute emergency preparedness materials, everything from evacuation kits to do-it-yourself HEPA filter kits, websites, event calendars, all the great stuff. So that's kind of a very quick summary of a very long EPA proposal. But I will end with just kind of looking forward on this concept in Flagstaff. Yes, this was a funding proposal and we might not get selected, but this idea and concept of resilience hubs and a network is so important to the work that we do in the city as a whole, and especially me in sustainability, thinking about all of these things. And so we're going to continue to pursue funding to support this. We have been thinking about this, and we tried to get it on a bond, and we'll keep looking everywhere we can. So there's also steps we're going to take during the waiting period and beyond, and that includes identifying more partners, starting the process to get really meaningful community input and involvement. And so I'd love to take questions and hear from you, any input, feedback, direction, as commissioners, but also as members of this community. And I'd be happy to put my contact information and continue the conversation at another time too. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Jenna? You can either raise your hand or type it in the chat. Go ahead, Jean.
Hi, Jana. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. I've got two questions. One is, what is the timeline for, finding out the about the grant? And then the other thing is, it said in the previous slide, online mapping. Can you just speak a little bit more to that for those of us that are kind of map geeks? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. So the timeline, we won't find out about funding until fall of this year. And somehow with all of the craziness, I can't remember if it's October or November, but definitely we have a waiting period. And yeah, as far as the mapping goes, I love maps as well. We know that there are maps out there, and I know this commission has worked on mapping efforts. So the language we kind of put in the proposal was to hopefully support and help build other mapping tools. So we would love to build out all the places that provide any sort of resilient service across the community and help with kind of outreach methods to really get community members using that tool. So it's somewhat vague in the language, but I think it's really important that people are aware of all the services in our community.
Okay, we have another question from Marcella.
Sorry, trying to lower my hand and unmute simultaneously. Hi, Jenna. Thank you so much for your presentation. I am super passionate about this. I think it's a hugely important issue for our community and for our specific stakeholders as CODA. I am also a staff member at NAU, and I'm just wondering which organization or which context you're working with at NAU?
Ooh, great question.
You can also feel free I can follow up with you separately on that, but just would love to continue to encourage that from within the university as well.
Yes, let's do that so I don't accidentally say the wrong thing. I appreciate that, and I will follow up. Thank you.
Any other questions for Jenna? Okay, Carolyn, go ahead.
Hi, Jenna. Nice to see you. Thank you so much for this presentation. I also want to know if you can give us at some point in time the list of partnerships. I did see you gave us a slide there, but just as my counterpart there, I just wanted to know if Flagstaff Pride organization was also a part of this partnership. Thanks.
Good to see you too, Carol. Yes, I will. I can provide this whole slide deck, but I can also just pull out the list of partners. Flag Pride was not included on the list. And as I kind of mentioned, this was like a 1-month deadline, and that's on us for reaching out to the list of contacts that we have and have relationships with. But we want as many partners as possible. This is for community. So I would love to hear not just about Flagstaff Pride, but any other groups that want to partner on this. And I'd be happy to set up calls and see interest or needs to be a partner and figure that out with anyone who's interested.
Go ahead, Jean.
Yeah, I just second Carolyn's comment about reaching out to Pride, but what are some of the specific ways CODA can support this effort? I know in the past we have written letters of support and that sort of thing, but do you have some suggestions for us in ways we can, maybe more specifically support this wonderful effort?
Yes, thank you for that question. So right now we have brought this to some internal groups, not as formal as a commission yet. We brought it to our advisory groups to get input on things like direct community engagement and outreach. If this is funded and there is a resilience hub down the road, how should we go about letting the community know? It's probably not just our newsletter and things like that. So I would love to maybe come up with some ideas such as, how can we make sure that these community centers are serving the communities that they're in, and input on how we can make sure that the services and the activities support variety of peoples and cultures and all sorts of different, things like that would be really helpful. So I would also be interested to hear if you guys have other ideas on what that might look like, kind of hearing this proposal. A lot of times I don't get that really wide viewpoint and that step back from someone who hasn't been writing this grant for a month. So we would be open to anything you guys would be interested in as well.
Would you like us to put this on the agenda for next month as a discussion item? We can't discuss anything that's not on the agenda, but maybe after this excellent presentation, and even if this grant doesn't come through, certainly, like you said, the concepts, and a plan for building a future. I personally would be happy to put it on as a discussion item so this commission together can identify some ways to support the effort.
That would be very meaningful, and we would be very grateful if that was something that CODA was interested in doing. So thank you.
Well, I guess that goes to you, Lisa.
Yes, we can definitely put that on the agenda for discussion for next month.
Awesome. Any other questions for Jenna? Well, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation, and thank you for the hard work you've been doing for not just this project, but for the overall services to Flagstaff, and look forward to coming up with some ways to, support you more formally. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for everything that everyone here does. So we really appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you. Okay, that was great. Now we're going to move on to another, wait a minute. The next thing on the agenda is an update on the Juneteenth and also day after Thanksgiving initiative that we were presenting to Indigenous Commission. Bethany, and I don't think Kim's not here today, but Bethany, do you want to give us a short update on what that, how that meeting went and what was decided or whatever?
Yeah, and I apologize. There's they're doing some construction outside of my office, and there's a lot of beeping right now. So, it looks like it's gonna stop. Sorry. Okay, so I met briefly. What was that? Was that in March that I think we met?
Yeah.
And sorry, it's been a crazy month already. So what we talked about, they're very much in support of Juneteenth, and will support us in Juneteenth as a holiday, and are very excited about that in ways that we can celebrate it and be inclusive. And I think there was quite a bit of discussion around the other day after Thanksgiving. And I don't know if you want me to talk about that now, Jean, or just focus on the Juneteenth, but they are definitely in support of moving forward with designating Juneteenth as a city holiday.
Okay, we are going to have a meeting. There was a collaborative work group, as Bethany's on it, as she knows, with the IC, and I will be sending out a notice or a Zoom invite for a collaborative meeting on the 28th, a week from Friday, and it's going to be at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's really hard to get busy people together, so not everybody's going to be able to make the meeting, but that's where the most could be could attend. And if anybody else on this commission would like to join that meeting, I will forward the link to Lisa for distribution to the entire commission. So anybody who would like to join that, I think this is, super, super, super important. And is there anything I'm missing there, Bethany?
No, I think they were just really excited, especially folks that lived in the South and had participated in big celebrations. And I think there was some discussion about dragging Flagstaff into the 21st century finally. In terms of being inclusive. So
Okay. It's about time, right?
pretty much that was the consensus of like, well, yeah, why is this not happening? So yes, yeah. They're incredibly supportive, and I think it'll be good to partner with them.
Okay. Does anybody on the commission or any of our guests have any questions regarding this? Okay, I don't see any hands up. So
Yeah, and I don't see anything in the chat either, so you're good.
okay, thank you, Lisa. Yeah, and so anyway, like I said, on the 28th at 1 o'clock, we'll have a meeting, a collaborative meeting with some commissioners from IC, and we'll go forward from there. So thank you for that, Bethany. Now we're going to move forward to our next guest presenter, which is Carrie Grimm, and she is going to share information on wildfire communication tools in environmental justice communities, and I am so looking forward to this. Thank you for joining us. You're on mute.
There we go. Thank you so much. Let me see. Let me share this. I am not the most team savvy person. So, all right. Is everybody seeing the presentation view?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everybody for having me and fitting me into the schedule, especially since it's so full. And also, Jenna, thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. This really builds right directly from Jenna. I have to thank you for setting me up because it is also dealing with issues of equity and resilience. Resilience in the sense that when we live in a community that is very much faced with wildfire and post-fire flooding and impacts like that, we want to build resilience to these. As Jenna mentioned, with climate change increasing, these are some of the impacts we could see even more, and something that communities are going to have to be able to address in order to, continue being resilient communities, both socially and ecologically. So this is a project that's funded through NASA through their ROSES program, but specifically the Directive of Equity and Environmental Justice. And what we're interested in looking at, myself, my colleagues, Rachel Mitchell, who was at NAU and is now at U of A, and Teki Senki, who is at NAU. We're interested in looking at accessibility, inequities, and barriers to wildfire communication in environmental justice communities. And one of the really exciting aspects of this project is the ability to collaborate with different community groups. There's even some funding for working with community partners to help and compensate them for any time that they have. And what we're really interested in looking at is seeing both wildfire communication methods as well as the type of information, and sort of see how people in the greater Flagstaff area are accessing this information and differences that might exist based on the different groups that there are. And so we really want to understand risk perception, mitigation approaches, and equity in accessing this information. And to understand what challenges and barriers people face in accessing this information, how they're obtaining information currently, and is that trustworthy sources? Do they have preferred modes that they're not able to access information through? And in general, what are people's awareness of wildfire risk, and how does that relate to their access for wildfire information? And one thing I should say is with this study, when we're looking at wildfire information, we're not just looking at, hey, there's a fire, what information, evacuation information. We're looking at the whole swath of information. So that information we receive beforehand and hopefully to prevent a fire. So such as fire restrictions, ways to mitigate our properties, things that they're doing at a larger scale, such as controlled burns and thinning to reduce the community's risk. And then there is the during fire kind of period of information that is shared. Where's the fire moving? What is evacuation? What resources are available? And then the post-fire. And that might be post-fire impacts such as flooding, mitigation projects, things people could do on their own property, as well as resources available such as flood insurance, or if there's any incentive programs that people could take advantage of. So really looking at a whole wide, like all this information we're bombarded with around wildfires. And one of the reasons that we're really interested is looking at ways to improve communications for underserved groups by sharing their experiences and recommendations. So, seeing if there are barriers that need to be addressed. Other research has found that language sometimes is a barrier, accessibility to internet, especially as more and more information is being shared that way. Trusted sources and preferred modes of communication. For example, I had a friend who had lived in Sunnyside, and then also when I presented this last year to some groups, someone mentioned this as well, is that, for example, in communities where there might be higher rates of undocumented, or even if they are documented, fears of being brought in to see if they're undocumented, might be less likely to answer the door with law enforcement that's coming around with information. So really thinking about who are different demographics and which are the methods that they trust, and working within that to ensure that that community is the safest. And then what types of information is being shared and what's not? Is it just information during a fire? Are some groups not getting information about flood insurance or other incentive programs? So really seeing if there are disconnects between the different demographics and groups around town. And so when I also say we're looking at the different demographics, one of the other aspects we're also interested in is ownership, right? So in Flagstaff, we have lots of different ownership. So some people who are renting and how that might impact their ability to, for example, make their property safer and act on information, but also second homeowners. So looking at some of those dynamics of how people feel safe or not safe based on, are there a lot of Airbnbs? Are there second homeowners who don't do any mitigation, for example? So we are going to reach widely to those different demographics. And so for this study, we're really looking at Flagstaff and the surrounding area affected by recent fires. And when we say surrounding area, we're going as south as Munns Park area, over to Belmont, up to kind of Kendrick Park, and over to Winona. Part of the reason is we didn't want to add another variable of another national forest. And also because we're working a lot with community groups, we want to have that sort of ones that are tied into the Flagstaff community, especially. What we're doing is currently it's a social and ecological study. So I am a social scientist. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Carrie. I'm a social scientist. And I am leading right now. I'm conducting interviews with those who create and share wildfire information. And I've been working on this since February. People are busy, and I've got some scheduled throughout May. And that's to really understand the experiences and needs of those communicating wildfire information, seeing challenges that they've had reaching different groups, and things that they want to know to help inform also the survey, so that we could help improve that communication to a wider net of people. The next step is to conduct a survey. We'll have mailed surveys to a random, well, not a stratified population. So we've looked at neighborhood census data, block data, to kind of identify areas that have higher minority or higher low income groups. So we could sample from both, but oversample in some of those underrepresented areas, because research has shown that there is less likelihood of people of those demographics completing a survey, and we really want to hear those voices. And so that's again going to be those Flagstaff area residents that we'll mail it to, and then there'll be also an online link so that anybody who also fits within our study parameters can take it. And we're going to really turn to all these different partners and groups that I'm talking to and reaching out to and asking people to just share it in all sorts of networks they have, so we can get as many voices as possible. And so that was hoping to get it out in April, but a lot of people want to give some feedback, so it might be the beginning of May, and keep going till August. Part of it, I know it's weird because it does kind of overlap with some of these seasons in terms of fire and flood, but we also want to be able to get those second homeowners who might just come up for summer. So it's kind of, Flagstaff has a lot of, you know, in winter there's a lot of snow potentially. So it's always, you're always working around something in Flagstaff. And like I said, we're working with different groups to share the survey. And we want to really understand those community experiences, needs, and challenges, and be able to compare across demographics too, so that would help also in maybe targeting messages to certain neighborhoods and certain demographics in ways that they prefer to receive information, for example. And then we're also over the summer have some students who are going to be collecting forestry data, tree measurements and density, fuel loading, and then also kind of doing a cursory assessment just from what they can see on the street of seeing if houses are fire-wise. And the goal of that is to compare that data of neighborhoods the residents' perceptions of safety with sort of how safe is their data or how safe is their neighborhoods, and then seeing where they're getting their information from. And so really thinking about ways that CODA could help is, you know, providing insider needs, concerns to inform the survey, you know, based on groups that you've worked with, you know, just being community members yourself, and then also sharing the survey with your network and neighborhood, suggestions of people to interview. One thing, we've talked to a lot of officials already from all different sorts of levels, nonprofits, utility companies, media, and then like, you know, all different levels in terms of federal, state, etc. But also if there's any key people in the neighborhood that are really tapped into being the ones that are informing people and sharing information. And then we're also going to work on developing outreach materials. And again, we want it to be based on the information that we've learned in terms of how people like to get that information. And so what we really want to know is how this project can help address your needs, concerns, or those of, you know, the people that you're working with, what you've heard, some of the groups that you partner with. Some of the things we're thinking of broadly is, you know, or that I've been putting in there is the types of information that's been received, trusted or preferred types of sources, preferred communication methods, challenges, opinions of language being used, for example, if it's culturally appropriate or offensive, opinions of personal neighborhood fire and flood safety, level of concern about wildfires and post-wildfire impacts, how people have been impacted to see if that affects kind of how they think about these things, and also then mitigation actions taken and where they've learned about that and challenges that they might have encountered to that. And so with that, I really want to focus mostly on, you know, any questions or ideas that you have that, you know, would help us with our survey, addressing any needs that you've maybe thought of or heard of different groups. So with that, I'm going to turn that over to everybody, and I'm going to stop this sharing for a sec. There we go.
Do we have any questions for Carrie? Go ahead.
So, thank you so much, Carrie. This is wonderful, and I am sure. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay, good. And I'm sure fire and water is always in the forefront of our minds once we live in Flagstaff and beyond. So the second to last slide that you had there, I'm just wondering if you can send that to us, because you know, we don't have time to go into all the different areas there, because I do have some suggestions with that. Great. But for the languages, definitely we'd like to see the different languages being reflected for the people of Flagstaff. Like, you know, you have Spanish, and you also have, well, you have Latino, Spanish, and you do have all the different Native Americans languages too, which is, you have Navajo and Hopi, and there are some others too. So, you know, at least, because when there's an emergency, they also need to know what's happening. And again, there's some other things that, I could add there, the people you can reach out to, because we do have the flood control district in the county too, where we have some persons there that you could speak with too. So I wouldn't want to take up too much of your time, but it'd be great if you can email it for us, and then we can fill it out and send it back to you with some more information. But glad to share this with us. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm going to also put in, even though it's up there, I'll also put in the chat. There's my contact info, and I will be happy to share this with everybody. And you could also send me any thoughts you have, so that I could definitely try to include them as well. So I'll share the presentation and look forward to any feedback that anybody wants to share.
Thank you, Carrie. Next up, we have Sarah, and then we have a question in the chat.
Sorry, trying to push 3 buttons at the same time here. Hi, Carrie. My name is Sarah Jarvis. I also work at NAU. I'm a health disparities researcher, and I was just going to basically second what Carolyn said. I think having information available in multiple languages would be really helpful. But I think, again, if we can get access to your information, we can definitely provide some feedback to you. So thank you.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it.
And Carrie, from our chat, from one of our commissioners, Angelica, she's asking in terms of, hold on just a second, in terms of comparison between renters versus owners versus second homeowners, will that be taken into account when analyzing neighborhoods to focus on as well? And then a second part of that question is, in terms of the internet challenges and barriers, will you also be looking at other aspects of the digital divide, like not having a phone, etc.?
Great. Just writing this down. So in terms of the first one, yeah, I have a question. It's so complicated in Flagstaff. At the moment, the first question is, do you live in Flagstaff year round or not? But then the next one is, I rent a place in here, and I own a place and live year round. And then all the various ones, I own a place and I short term rent it out. And people will can have multiple for that, right? Some people live here year round and also have a house they rent. So I will be taking that into account. What I think I'm going to do in terms of the neighborhood is have people self-select their primary neighborhood that they want to focus on, based on, most will, if they live somewhere, that'll be the place that they do it. It's not perfect in that regard, but I don't want to have them answer something multiple times for the same one. But in terms of, the survey is really focusing on every single neighborhood. So, all neighborhoods, and then like accounting for all people. When we mail it out to people, we want the renters to fill it out. So it's going to be addressed to, resident, Coconino County resident, because I do want the renter to take it, because especially if we're really trying to get environmental justice communities, it's more likely going to be people who are renting a home versus people who are owning the home or a property management company. So that's one thing we're going to do. In terms of the internet barriers or challenges, thank you for mentioning the not having a phone. I will make sure to actually put that. At the moment, I was just focusing on being able to afford it, and internet, for example, and being able to have service. And I was thinking a lot of internet on the phone, but I can definitely add something like that. And if you have any other thoughts for other digital divides that are at play, I'd love to hear those as well.
Okay, next up we have Jean Toner with the question.
I just want to thank you for this work you're doing, Carrie. This is very, this is essential work in my view. Flagstaff is actually the second disaster-prone area I have lived in. I also lived in Hurricane Alley for, about 13 years out in the Outer Banks. And the thing that came up all the time in both types of disaster-prone areas is the expense of evacuation. One of the things, if you see, kind of the popular press, CNN or whatever, talking about why don't people aren't evacuating, they kind of miss that basic fact that when you evacuate, it is phenomenally expensive to evacuate. So I just think that really needs to be highlighted, because I don't hear it talked about enough, and it's significant. You know, just getting off the island or getting out of the forest may not be that easy, and may not be affordable. So that's all mine.
No, that's great. Oh, sorry, go on.
This is great what you're doing. I'm really pleased.
Yeah, and that's great because that definitely gives me, because I want to keep it information focused, but maybe I'll have a question about what challenges have you experienced acting on information you've received. I have that in terms of mitigation approaches, but I could maybe broaden it out or have another question so that get it, you know, just because you have information, that doesn't mean that you can always act on it. And I think that that's an important aspect to also look at in this.
Okay, and one of our commissioners suggested using something called Starlink. She's not sure of the cost of that, but that's for those who have internet challenges and barriers. And she put the link to it in the chat.
Great, thank you.
And I will also say thank you very much for providing us with your PowerPoint. It's very helpful. Really appreciate that too.
Yes, I'll send it. I'll send it out to the email that everybody was on, and then if anybody's missing from that, I'll leave it to you all to forward it on to them based on their addresses.
Thank you. Yeah, you can send it directly to me, Carrie, and Alan first, and then we'll forward it out to the commissioners to stay in compliance.
Okay, great. Thank you for letting me know that.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Carrie?
Everyone is saying thank you in the chat. They appreciate the presentation.
Absolutely. This was really important stuff, and it's important work that you're doing.
Okay. Well, thank you for the feedback, and I look forward to getting emails of your thoughts that will help improve the study even more.
Thank you. Look forward to working with you.
Great.
Okay. Well, it's always so, you know, just heartening to know that there's really good work going on in our community, and that is encouraging and hopeful. And you know, we need hope every day of our life. So, oh, there was one thing I forgot to say to her, which was communication paths through the churches, through the spiritual, some of the spiritual communities. Yeah. So, okay. I forgot that till just now. Okay. So we're moving on now to a discussion of any formal efforts for the Women's Rights Commission. I do not have any information on that. Does anybody have any information on that? I know we don't have a formal work group on it. The formal work group we have was on the Women's History Month, and that was done in his past, and the other one was the Women's Calendar work group that we'll get to. But does anybody have it? Yeah, go ahead, Carolyn.
So I don't have any information on it, but what I would like, I want to be a part of that commission, but what I would like is the historical information, because I understand that City of Flagstaff at one time was starting a commission and they had some sort of information and then for some reason was not implemented. So it's good for us to start from the history. So if you could probably, I don't know if Lisa or I'm not sure who was involved, but if we could get some historical on that, that would be great.
Okay, yeah, and I will do that. I was actually part of that early effort, and I think that the reason, besides the fact that there's always too much work to do, I think it was also a fact that we had a changing city council. But I will forward the one letter of support that Coda wrote to Lisa for distribution to everybody, and I will also try to draft a little out of my memory and whatever we might be able to pull out of the minutes, because we had a formal meeting with the mayor and with one of the council members. So I will get that draft together. Note to self. Yeah. Draft of efforts. And I do have actually still have a copy of the letter that we sent, so I'll take care of that. Other people, other comments.
Awesome.
I don't see any hands up.
Okay. All right. So Lisa, I will send you that, the draft of that letter, and I mean that memo of support, and we'll also try to draft something. Okay, now we're going to move on to number 9, reports and discussion items for future priorities. Landlord education for anti-bias education. Ask Ishmael if he can do a presentation for May 17th, and also possibly any work that has, if anything, has been forthcoming with the Downtown Business Alliance. Anybody have a report on that?
That is myself, and I just saw Bethany. I think she just went in and out. Commissioner Bethany. Anyway, okay, good. So again, there's nothing to update. There's no response. I tried 2 other venues to try to get on to the Downtown Flagstaff Alliance, and there was no response. So at this point in time, we could probably close that until, yeah, and we could also, Bethany and I, Commissioner Bethany and I, we could use our resources in other areas, in other work groups, but
Absolutely.
right now it's a dead end with that.
Okay, well,
Sorry
thank you.
about that.
You put out a lot of effort trying to make that.
Yeah, she did.
Yes, to try to create a response. So we'll just have to take a different path with that. I am wondering if, I don't know Ishmael, but I was really very moved by what he had to say. And this is, of course, we also, I would hope that he would also talk to the Housing Commission, because this is real significant part of the work they've been doing. So how do you all want to move forward with the suggestion that Ishmael had about anti-bias education, particularly around housing? That's what was so heartbreaking, was there was kind of no path for this young man when he got evicted. There, you know, we certainly have the link on our website to human rights complaints to be able to be filed, but boy, you know, sit in line and wait for about 3 years, you know. So any discussion on that, any ideas? I'm just not really sure how to move forward with that. I think that anti-bias education, it is one of the, you know, kind of one of the charges of our mission is education, but it's also a really complex activity, I guess. You know, there's a lot of moving parts in providing public education. Okay, go ahead. I don't know if Marcella or Bethany were first. Go ahead, either one of you.
Go ahead, Bethany.
I wasn't here last meeting, so if you could just do an overview, what did we miss? Because I think anti-bias would be great, but I also feel like every city in the United States is facing this, and where is our foot in this, and how can we support? Because it is important to have avenues. How can we support? But also, could you explain a little bit more? Sorry, I wasn't here last time. Thanks.
And Elika says, I think education would be great, but I'm not sure there would be any implication coming out of it. Any implications, for instance, if somebody doesn't adhere to them, what are the consequences? Very good point. You know, that's, I think, at the core of a lot of this. Basically, I'm not sure what Ishmael's specific role is. He's a faculty member of some sort, and I'm not sure which department. I'm sorry about that, but he was working with a student, an international student, who got kicked out of his apartment for unknown reasons. And there was, hold on a second, I don't think so. For example, if someone doesn't adhere to them, what are the consequences? Based on the story Ishmael gave last week, I don't think he had anywhere to go. That is correct. Yeah, so, yeah, okay, here we go. Department of Ed Leadership. I remember that now. He's a professor in Ed Leadership. Anyway, but there was no recourse and there was no support for this young man who had gotten kicked out, and it was during the semester. So, you know, it impacted, it had a really severe impact on the gentleman. And there was a sense that it was definitely based on bias. And this is, of course, we have some protections in housing, but not as robust as we need. So basically, I guess what the question is how can we follow up with the request that Ishmael made to this particular commission in terms of intervention, public education, particularly around housing. Go ahead.
Kara had put in the conversation, and I was responding to Kara, if he knew about the Fair Housing Education and Southwest Fair Housing Council. And my response was to her was, I don't think so, because Ishmael didn't bring that up in the conversation. It sounded like when the young man, and by the way, you guys, this is Lisa Cada, staff liaison. I'm sorry for speaking off camera there, but it sounded like the young man, when he was being asked to leave the facility, he had less than a week, and there was very few resources available to him in terms of going to another housing. And in fact, I do vividly remember Ishmael saying at the end of the week, the student dropped out of class. I mean, he dropped out of school because he didn't have a place to live. So to answer Kara's question, I don't think he knew about the Fair Housing Education and the Southwest Fair Housing Council. And so maybe one of the things that we can do is on the CODA website, put a link to that information on our website.
That is a fabulous idea. Let's do it. Is that something, those of you that know some of the open meeting laws and stuff like that, is that something we can just vote on, or is that something we can, vote on right now? For those links, does it even need to be voted on? Those are definitely links that should be on our website.
Because we brought it up in a discussion, we can just move it forward with the discussion. And I'll double check on that just to make sure if we have to do an actual vote. And if so, we'll put it on the agenda for next week to do the actual vote. But because CODA has a website, I'm just thinking that it's a resource that we can upload. But let me double check on that, and then I will make sure that I follow up with the commissioners on it.
Okay, as long as we don't have to vote on it, let's just agree to, have those links published on our website. Another thing that I think about is the possibility of drafting an informational little index card or something very accessible for distribution. Now, I know that we as a commission don't have that enough budget to do any distribution, but if we could actually draft an informational, if you're having housing challenges and if they are related to suspected bias, then here are some of the resources, and just get that distributed some way or another. What does anybody think about that?
I would think that we could do the work in a work group collaboration for something like that and put it together.
Okay. Bethany, I see your hand is up.
I just typed it too. I think that's great. This is such a widespread problem. It would be nice if if in that list we had links, because there's funding and grants that are going towards this, so that we're not splitting that pool. I know there's always the threat of scarcity of resources, which is true sometimes and not true in other times, but I think linking with Catholic Charities or other housing specialists, that would be, or just crisis, that would be good too.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea to link. And also, those are people that have kind of an information pathway.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's their specialty. And I think it's great to promote that within our city, because this housing crisis is very real for high income earners as well. So yeah, I think that would be great to promote that.
So do we want to actually create some kind of little, a draft of some little informational postcard, or does somebody want to volunteer to talk to? We could just start with, you know, an email to the Housing Commission, whoever the liaison is for the Housing Commission, or to keep it within the city commission structure, but also send something to, in other words, I don't want to overstep. I'm not an expert. And so if we step outside, like Bethany had said, you know, Catholic social family services or something like that, then we run the risk of duplication, and also duplication without expertise.
Well, and that's why I mentioned earlier doing a work group, and then we can divide and conquer in terms of that list of things to do to reach out to people in a work group.
Okay. Does anybody want to, and what are we going to call that? Housing anti-bias education?
Yes.
Okay.
That's great.
Who would like to volunteer for that work group? And I'll add it to our list of work groups.
This is Bethany. I will. I worked in, my first job as a therapist was at a women and children shelter in Austin. So I'm familiar at least with homeless services or housing services a little bit.
Okay.
So I would love to work with that.
Anybody else would like to join Bethany?
So yeah, I will. My hand was up there, and then check in the chat too, because Kara House, Councilwoman Kara House has some information there for us.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, I'm going to go back and listen. This is what Kara House, our city council person, is saying. I'm going to go back and listen to Ishmael's discussion on this. I am the you're the Housing Commission council liaison, and also work in housing, so I'm sure I can share some resources, but want to fully understand the challenge that Ishmael was sharing. Wonderful. I will add a heart also. So we've got Bethany and Carolyn have offered to be as part of the work group, and Kara is going to do a review. So maybe we can keep this on the agenda for next month and revisit this and come up with a plan, or does the work group want to meet before then? What's the plan moving forward?
Definitely want to go ahead and put it on next month's agenda. But the work group meeting, that's up to you guys when you want to meet on the topic.
Okay, so you guys can actually, outside the open meeting structures, because it's a work group, you can directly communicate with each other.
We'll do that. That sounds great. Thank you for this opportunity. I think it's great that we're casting kind of a wide net as CODA, saying we are aware of these things. Let us help connect you to resources and experts. We're kind of becoming the social workers in the community. It's great.
Ditto. I agree.
And I would also, thanks for this opportunity, and I would really like to wait to see some of the discussions and resources that that Councilwoman Kara has, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel, right? So I would prefer to wait for some of her resources and probably advisement on which is the best way to go. So I'll appreciate that. Thanks.
Okay, so we can just kind of hold until next month. and have it on the agenda for next month. Does that sound good to everybody?
That sounds
That
great.
sounds good.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman House. Really appreciate it. Okay, so now we're going to move on to proclamations, and we do have a proclamation to review and vote on. So I'm going to pull it up right here. And would you like me to read it, or does one of the work group members, Mandy or Carolyn or Bethany, want to read it?
I think everybody got a copy of it. The whole thing, we just needed to, if you want me to read it, that's fine. But I just wanted to know if anybody else who has read it, if they saw any edits or any changes, because it's a draft. So that will be good if they see anything on there. But I'm fine to read it if it's okay with everyone.
Well, and we don't have to. You're probably
Yeah,
right.
because
I
yeah.
definitely have reviewed it, and I thought
Yeah.
it was fantastic, and I really want to commend that work group. This is very comprehensive and very affirming. So that would be my comment. I don't have anything to change. What about anybody else? Has everybody had an opportunity to read it? I didn't see anything that was left off. That's Anelika. And who else? Okay.
Bethany says it looks good to her.
Okay. Well, I'm okay with just going ahead. Lisa, I've got a question for you. Are we on the agenda for the reading of this proclamation? The city council agenda?
Oh, that is a really good question. I'm not sure. Let me double check on that
Okay.
and get back with you all.
Okay. And but we can go ahead and vote on approving and moving forward this proclamation. So if anybody would like to make a motion and second, I will move that we accept, approve, and move forward the proclamation.
I second. Yeah,
Okay.
let's do it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any of those opposed? Okay, we are going to move this forward. The other thing I would say is we would like to have a commission member there. I won't be able to be there if it's May 5th or whatever, but a commission member, is there a commission member that might be able to go to the beginning of city council, which is at 3 o'clock? I'm not sure of the date yet, but Lisa will let us know what the actual date is. Does anybody, is anybody available at that time to read and accept the proclamation?
I'll be available.
Awesome. Okay, Carolyn, thank you.
Hold on just
And
a
I see
second.
that
Councilmember Kara House is typing. She may
Oh,
have
yeah, she's probably telling us about the date.
Sorry, let me just unmute
Yes.
because I'm back. So it is not currently calendared that I'm seeing on our working calendar, but I can go ahead and email the mayor today and ask that we get it calendared and let her know that it's written and approved by CODA already to try and expedite that. Because usually it's the process of Sean Johnson writing the proclamations and going through any sort of review. But if it's done, then it should be pretty easy to schedule.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
Kara.
for that. Appreciate it very much. And what we can do too is, I guess, Lisa, since we've already approved this, if you can forward the draft to Sean.
Kara. Yeah, to Sean and Kara. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councilwoman House. Okay, moving on. Any updates from our staff liaison, our wonderful staff liaison? Go ahead, Lisa.
I was actually going to turn that over to Miss House if she didn't mind.
Oh,
Just
okay.
letting us know if anything in particular CODA should be aware of from this week's past city council meeting. I only sat in for the first 10 minutes and then I had to go to another meeting. So, Miss Councilwoman, was there anything specific to our group that was mentioned?
Nothing at this meeting. However, I did want to make sure I shared that the council is moving forward with a letter of support for the student-led request to rename Agassiz Peak. That happened maybe 2 weeks ago. So not this past Tuesday, but the Tuesday before. We had the discussion and a presentation from Daryl Marks and Machias Marks and another NAU student, I believe. And they shared the proposed name that they had already sent into, it's a federal body that works on these renaming processes. And the explanation of how they came up with the name was absolutely beautiful. And I believe council was unanimous in expressing the support for a letter going from council to that review board for that renaming. So basically what that would do would be, now that I'm thinking of it, I think maybe it was a state body that they sent that to. It would change the name at the state level, and then there would be additional work to get it changed in the national register, I believe. But it's a first step, and we're also looking at processes of potentially adopting the new name that was proposed at the local level. So just using it in city marketing or anything like that to show that sort of local support if basically either way that goes at the state level and then federally. And then I'll also just share with you all that I have been having, aside from direct council meeting discussions, a conversation with Mark Cox with the Boys and Girls Club about he has just a really good vision of how Flagstaff can be more meaningfully engaged with Flagstaff's diverse communities. And my plan has been to invite him to come and present to you as CODA for that. I have not had the opportunity. I keep missing the day to get that invitation out, but I will shoot him a message today to ask if he might be available for you guys' May meeting, just to come and share, even in just a public comment about what that vision is and how the city of Flagstaff can do more to be a bit more representational and engaging with diverse communities.
That would be fabulous. Thank you very much. And I see that Mandy is typing also.
Everyone is saying thank you. Mandy has a 3 p.m. meeting, so she's got to jump off, and so does Sarah.
Okay.
But everyone is saying thank you, Councilwoman, and thank you again, because I have missed several of those meetings. I've been doing a lot of training here lately and bouncing around from different departments and divisions, so I haven't been able to get into the city council meetings strategically for the whole meeting. So I've missed some of the stuff, but thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Okay, it's just 3 minutes till just very briefly, Commissioner Pino, do you have any comments on or any updates on the finding a graduate student who might do the data crunching? Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Toner. Really quickly, I have sent that out. I've been working with the department chair. It looks like it'll be within criminal justice. There is one student who has been identified who is an undergraduate senior. They're just looking for somebody to work with that student, either as a master's student or as a professor. So still kind of waiting on identification. I think the timing might be tough just because we're going into summer. So we might need to wait until fall, depending on what we hear.
Thank you so much for that. That is good news. Wonderful. I love it when data actually, it's so much effort and actually some expense went into collecting that data. So I'm glad that there's somebody who is interested. Okay, thank you. And C, current priorities. Councilwoman House has already given us the update. And I received an email saying the same thing from Daryl, so we're good there. Work group list, I'm going to add to, that's number D, I'm going to add the new work list, the new group for housing anti-bias education. Collaboration with library, Pride panel already has been announced. So anything on the women's calendar report?
We just need to meet again to really hone that in and get started on it. And it was just a scheduling conflict with Bethany and Sarah and myself. So we just need to schedule another meeting and move forward.
And Lisa, did that get approved that we could put something up on our website then?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I did get approval. Thank you for asking me that. I did get approval to add something to the website. And I will get that information over to you as soon as possible, Bethany.
Okay, I want to see if we can add this to our agenda next month, where could we basically just add I was thinking the topics from our work groups if they're relevant, or we could have a resource page, and that's where like the housing committee stuff could go. Or anyways, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we could put on there. So if we're doing the monthly theme, like Asian and Pacific American month, if we had different stuff on the calendar for that, or different resources, if we could add me being able to talk about what that looks like, and I will add that stuff.
Yeah, we can put it in the discussion item for next month.
Perfect. You read my jarbled blah, 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 blah. Thank you.
Got it.
Okay, well, so the last thing is just a discussion that we've rolled over from month to month about the diversity flags. And I am not aware of any update of that. Are you aware of any update on any of those issues? I mean, any of those flag creations, Lisa?
No, I haven't gotten an update on it at all.
And I see that Carolyn is typing, so maybe she has an update.
Actually, no, I don't have an update on that. Sorry about that. I just wanted you to briefly let me know about the Pride panel project. That I know you have a panel set up with Deb Taylor and Bethany, I think, Commissioner Bethany. What day is it?
Okay, it's this coming Monday, the 24th. Okay. It's the 4th Street Library Facility. It's at 6:30 p.m. and Deb will be providing the history of Pride in Flagstaff. I'll be doing the history of CODA, and Bethany and our community member Ray Garcia will be talking about this proposed history collection story project that we're trying to get off the ground. And so that's it will be. I hope to see you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything else, commissioners, before we adjourn? Thank you for helping us move through such a crowded agenda. This is a fabulous commission, and thank you very much. It is 3:02 on April 19th, and I am adjourning this meeting of Commission on Diversity Awareness. Thank you all.
Thank you.
You all have a great day,
everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.